The Mysterious Watch. It was a crisp autumn morning when Lila first noticed her cat, Whiskers, behaving strangely. The sleek, black feline sat motionless, staring at an old pocket watch resting on the windowsill. The watch had belonged to Lila's grandfather, who had passed away years ago. Curiosity piqued. Lila moved toward it, but before she could touch it, Whiskers leapt onto the sill and pawed at the timepiece. As the cat's paw brushed the surface, a strange light flickered, and the room spun. The next thing Lila knew, she found herself not in her cozy living room, but in a bustling street that looked nothing like the world she knew. Whiskers was beside her, looking unfazed by the sudden change. Lila was bewildered. She walked through the streets, noticing the style of clothing and old-fashioned cars that looked like they came straight out of a history book. It didn't take long for her to realize that she had somehow been transported to the past. The watch on the windowsill wasn't just an heirloom, it was a portal. But how had Whiskers discovered its power? And what was his role in all this? A glimpse of the past. Lila was still trying to make sense of what had happened when she noticed a group of children playing hopscotch in the distance. Everything around her felt surreal. Her surroundings looked like something from the 1920s, yet the air felt strangely familiar. Whiskers meowed, as if to reassure her, and began walking toward the children. Lila followed, trying to keep her composure. She needed answers. A woman in a long, flowing dress approached, and Lila's heart skipped a beat when she realized the woman looked exactly like her grandmother, younger and full of life. "Hello there, dear. Are you lost?" she asked warmly. Lila's voice caught in her throat. I think I am," she stammered. The woman smiled, sensing something unusual. "Come with me, dear. We'll figure this out." As they walked toward the house, Lila glanced at Whiskers. He seemed to know exactly where he was going. The house was a familiar one, though it looked much newer. Lila realized they were standing in front of her grandparents' house, only this version of it was decades older. She had just stepped into a pivotal moment of her family's past. But why had the watch brought her here, and why did Whiskers seem so at ease? She had so many questions, but first, she needed to blend in and learn about this strange new world. Chapter 3. Whiskers' Secret. As Lila spent more time in the past, she began to notice something extraordinary about Whiskers. He didn't just wander around aimlessly like other cats. He seemed to have an uncanny sense of purpose. One evening, while Lila was sitting with her grandmother, she noticed Whiskers staring intently at a book on the shelf. The book was about ancient timekeeping, and it seemed to glow faintly. Whiskers' gaze never wavered. The next day, as Lila followed Whiskers, he led her to a small, hidden attic in the house. Inside was a dusty chest, one Lila had never seen before. Whiskers pawed at the chest, urging her to open it. As she did, she found an array of old relics, photographs, letters, and, oddly enough, a second, identical pocket watch. The moment Lila touched it, the room began to shimmer, and the air around her pulsed with energy. Whiskers turned to her and meowed in what almost sounded like a warning. Lila realized the cat wasn't just along for the ride. He was guiding her through time, and somehow, he knew more about the time-traveling watch than she did. But where would this journey lead them next, and what other secrets did Whiskers hold? Chapter 4. The Watchmaker's Legacy. The next day, Lila met an elderly man in the town square who seemed to recognize the watch. His name was Mr. Holt, a local historian and watchmaker who had lived through many eras. His eyes gleamed when he saw the pocket watch in Lila's hands. I see you've found it," he said with a knowing smile. "That watch has been passed down through generations, each owner discovering its power when the time is right." Intrigued, Lila asked him about the watch's origin. Mr. Holt led her to his workshop, where a wall lined with old clocks ticked in unison. "This watch was created by my great-grandfather, a brilliant inventor. He discovered a way to manipulate time itself, but only those with pure intentions could wield its power," Mr. Holt explained. "But there's a catch. The watch doesn't just move through time. It alters the path of destiny." Lila's heart raced. Was she being pulled through time for a reason? Mr. Holt warned her that every time they used the watch, the fabric of time itself was at risk. As he spoke, Whiskers jumped onto the table and nudged the second pocket watch toward Lila. It seemed the cat had known this moment would come. Chapter 5. The Final Leap. Whiskers led Lila to the town's old clock tower, where the second pocket watch was meant to be activated. The air was thick with tension as Lila realized the magnitude of her actions. She had already traveled through time, met her younger grandmother, and even uncovered the watchmaker's legacy. But now, she stood on the edge of an even greater journey. "If you use the watch," Mr. Holt warned, "you may change everything, past, present, and future. But be careful. Time is delicate. One wrong move, and it could all unravel." With a deep breath, Lila held the watch in her hands. Whiskers meowed one last time, his eyes filled with a sense of purpose. She closed her eyes and activated the watch, feeling the world around her begin to twist and warp. This final leap could take her anywhere, into the future, or perhaps to a world where the watch never existed. As the light engulfed her, Lila realized one thing. She wasn't just a traveler through time, she was a part of the watchmaker's legacy. And as long as Whiskers was by her side, time would always have a way of finding her.